The retirement party was held in the conference room at Stellar Communications, the company where I'd worked for 40 years. Streamers hung from the ceiling, and a sheet cake sat on the table with Happy Retirement Dorothy, written in blue icing. 60 colleagues gathered to say goodbye. I stood near the window in my sensible navy dress, the same one I'd worn to countless office events over the decades. My practical shoes, my simple watch, my reading glasses on a chain around my neck. At 65, I looked exactly like what everyone thought I was. A woman who'd spent her entire career in the same position, never climbing, never achieving, just existing. Speech, speech. Someone called out. My daughter Jennifer touched my arm. You don't have to, Mom. It's fine, honey. I stepped forward, but before I could speak, my son-in-law Derek raised his hand. Actually, if I could say something first, Derek didn't wait for permission. At 38, he was Stellar Communications Senior Vice President of Sales, a position he never let anyone forget. He'd married Jennifer 5 years ago, and I'd watched him slowly poison her against me ever since. I just want to take a moment, Derek said, his voice carrying that particular tone of false sincerity, to acknowledge what Dorothy represents. 40 years. 40 years in the same company, same position, same desk. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Some people climb the corporate ladder. Some people build empires. Some people leave their mark. He paused, looking directly at me. And some people just show up, day after day, year after year, doing the bare minimum, never taking risks, never achieving anything remarkable. Jennifer grabbed his arm. Derek, stop. I'm being honest, Jen. Someone needs to say it. He turned back to the room. Dorothy is retiring after 40 years, and what does she have to show for it? No promotions, no achievements, no legacy, just a gold watch and a pension. The room was dead silent. My point is, Derek continued, warming to his subject, Dorothy represents everything wrong with this generation. No ambition, no drive, just coasting along, taking up space that could have gone to someone hungry, someone with vision. My boss, or former boss, Richard cleared his throat. Derek, that's enough. Is it? Richard, you're the CEO. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me Dorothy contributed anything significant in 40 years. One thing, just one. Richard's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Derek smiled, vindicated. That's what I thought. So here's to Dorothy, 40 years and nothing to show for it. May the rest of us learn from her mistakes. He raised his glass. No one joined him. Jennifer was crying. My colleagues looked mortified. The room felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out. I stood there, letting Derek's words settle, letting everyone absorb what he'd just done. Then I smiled, the same calm smile I'd maintained for 4 decades. Derek, I said quietly, could I ask you something? He looked surprised that I was speaking. Sure. How long have you worked here? 8 years. Why? And you're the Senior Vice President of Sales. Very impressive. I nodded thoughtfully. Tell me, who hired you? Richard did. Everyone knows that. Actually, Richard interrupted, his voice tight, I didn't hire you. I approved the hire, but I didn't make the decision. Derek frowned. Then who did? I did, I said simply. The room went very still. What? Derek laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. You're an administrative assistant. You don't hire executives. You're right. Administrative assistants don't hire executives. I pulled out my phone, the smartphone Derek had mocked me for barely knowing how to use. But owners do. Owners? Derek's smile faltered. I turned to Richard. Would you like to tell him, or should I? Richard's face was carefully neutral. I think you should, Dorothy. You've waited long enough. I looked around the room at 60 faces, people I'd worked alongside for decades, people who'd watched me answer phones, schedule meetings, file documents, people who thought they knew exactly who I was. My full name is Dorothy Ann Stellar, I began. Stellar, as in Stellar Communications. My father founded this company 62 years ago. When he died 40 years ago, he left it to me, his only child. You could have heard a pin drop. But I didn't want to be the boss's daughter who inherited everything, I continued. I wanted to understand this company from the ground up. Every position, every challenge, every person. So I started as an administrative assistant, and I stayed there. Derek's face had gone pale. That's impossible. Richard is the CEO. Everyone knows. Richard is the CEO, I confirmed. I hired him 20 years ago to run operations while I focused on strategy and acquisitions. He's done an excellent job, but make no mistake, I own this company. Every brick, every contract, every employee. I swiped through my phone and pulled up a document, including you, Derek. Your employment contract signed 8 years ago. Your salary, $240,000 plus bonuses. Your performance reviews, which have been declining steadily, by the way. Derek grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it back. You asked what I have to show for 40 years, I said. Let me answer that. I have a company that's grown from 12 employees to 800. I have annual revenues that increase from $2 million to $1.3 billion. I have satellite offices in 7 countries. I have 300 patents. And I have every single person in this room. My colleague Sarah gasped. Dorothy, you're the anonymous donor. The one who paid for my son's cancer treatment. I nodded. Your insurance wouldn't cover the experimental treatment. Someone needed to help. And my daughter's scholarship, another voice called out. That was you. The company has an education fund, I said simply. It seemed important. Richard spoke up. For those who don't know, Dorothy has personally funded employee education for 30 years. Over 400 employees have earned degrees on her dime. She just never took credit. Because it wasn't about credit, I said. It was about building something that mattered. About creating opportunities. About taking care of people. Derek had sunk into a chair, his face ashen. Jennifer, did you know about this? My daughter shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, Mom never told me, never mentioned it once. Because you never asked, I said gently. You were so busy being embarrassed by my simple job that you never wondered why I stayed. Why I was content. Why I didn't need your pity. Mom, Jennifer whispered. I'm so sorry. I know, honey. I turned back to Derek. You said I represent everything wrong with my generation. No ambition. No drive, just coasting along. But here's what you missed. I built this empire while you were still in diapers. I created 800 jobs. I changed 800 families' lives. I did it quietly, without fanfare, because the work mattered more than the recognition. Why didn't you tell anyone? Someone asked. Because I wanted to see who people really were. When they thought I was powerless. When they thought I didn't matter. When they thought they could dismiss me without consequence. I looked directly at Derek. You learn a lot about people when they think you're beneath them. Derek tried to stand, stumbled, and sat back down. I didn't know. You have to understand, I didn't know. Would it have mattered if you did? Would you have been kinder? More respectful, or just more calculating? He had no answer. Richard stepped forward. For the record, Dorothy has been planning her retirement for 3 years. We've been transitioning leadership slowly and carefully. She's trained me, mentored the entire executive team, and ensured this company will thrive long after she's gone. And Derek, I added, about that speech you just gave, the one about me taking up space, taking opportunities from people with hunger and vision. I pulled up another document on my phone. I've been reviewing the sales division's performance. Your division has declined 18% over the past 2 years. Meanwhile, your expense reports show $80,000 in questionable charges, country club memberships, luxury dinners, a company car you barely use for business. His mouth opened and closed. You asked what I have to show for 40 years. Let me ask you, what do you have to show for 8? Besides arrogance and a declining sales record. The room was absolutely silent. Richard and I have been discussing restructuring, I continued. The sales division needs new leadership. Someone hungry, someone with vision, someone who understands that success isn't about showing off. It's about showing up. You're firing me, Derek said flatly. No, I'm giving you a choice. You can resign gracefully, and I'll provide 6 months severance and a neutral reference. Or you can stay, and we'll conduct a full audit of your division and your expenses. Your choice. Derek looked around the room for support. No one met his eyes. The people who'd laughed at his jokes, who'd admired his success, who'd watched him humiliate his mother-in-law, they all looked away. I need to think about it, he said weakly. You have until Monday morning. I turned to the room. Now, I believe we were here for a party. And I have a few things I'd like to say about my 40 years with Stellar Communications. I spent the next 20 minutes talking about the people in that room, the colleagues who'd become friends, the innovations we created together, the challenges we'd overcome. I thanked them for their dedication, creativity, and loyalty. I told stories that made people laugh and cry. I never mentioned Derek again. He stood in the corner, forgotten, while I celebrated the people who actually mattered. When the party ended, Jennifer approached me. "Mom, can we talk?" We stepped into my office, the small administrative space I'd occupied for 4 decades. Photos covered every surface, not of me, but of employees, weddings I'd attended, babies I'd held, graduations I'd celebrated. "You worked here," Jennifer said, looking around, "in this tiny office, when you could have had anything." I had everything that mattered. I had purpose. I had community. I had impact. "Derek's been telling me for years that you wasted your life, that you were a cautionary tale, that I shouldn't end up like you." She was crying again. "And I believed him, Mom. I was ashamed of you." "I know. How can you forgive me? Because you're here now, because you're seeing clearly, because you're my daughter and I love you." I pulled her into a hug. "And because I remember being young and thinking success looked like corner offices and fancy titles. It took me years to learn better." "What did you learn?" "That success isn't what you acquire, it's what you build. It's not about climbing over people, it's about lifting them up. It's not about being seen, it's about seeing others." Jennifer pulled back, looking at me. "What are you going to do now? Really retire?" I smiled. "I'm going to spend time with my daughter. Watch her remember why she married Derek in the first place, or help her build a new life without him. I'm going to travel, read, maybe start a consulting business helping other companies build better cultures. And Derek? That's up to him. And up to you. I don't know if I can stay married to someone who would humiliate you like that." "Then don't, but make that choice for yourself, not for me." We sat in my small office as the sun set through the window. My phone buzzed. Richard, asking if I was okay. Then Sarah, thanking me again for the medical bills. Then Tom from accounting, saying he never knew. Then Maria from IT, apologizing for not defending me. "They're all reaching out," Jennifer observed. "Because they care. That's what 40 years of showing up does. It builds relationships, real ones. Not based on power or position, but on presence and compassion." Derek appeared in the doorway, looking smaller somehow. "Jennifer, we should go." "I'm staying with Mom tonight," Jennifer said firmly. "Jen, please." I said, "I'm staying with Mom. You can go home. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk." He looked at me, something like desperation in his eyes. "Dorothy, I'm sorry. I truly am. I didn't know." "Derek, the saddest part isn't that you didn't know. It's that you thought it was acceptable to speak that way about anyone, regardless of their position or power. That's not a knowledge problem. That's a character problem." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "But," I continued, "character can change, if you're willing to do the work. Real work. Not just apologizing because you got caught, but genuinely examining why you felt entitled to diminish another human being." "How do I do that?" "That's something you'll need to figure out. I'd suggest starting by asking yourself why you felt threatened by a 65-year-old administrative assistant. What that says about you, what you were trying to prove." He nodded slowly and left. Jennifer squeezed my hand. "You were kinder to him than he deserved." "Maybe, but I've learned that cruelty doesn't build anything, it just tears down. And I'm in the business of building." We left the office together, my office that someone else would occupy come Monday. We walked past the conference room where my retirement party had been held, past the cubicles where I'd spent 40 years, past the portraits of company founders that included my father, but at my request, not me. "Mom," Jennifer said as we reached the elevator, 40 years and nothing to show for it. That's what Derek said. I remember. He was wrong. You have everything to show for it. This whole company, all these people, all these lives you touched." She pressed the elevator button. "You built a legacy." "No, honey." The elevator doors opened. "I built a family. The legacy is just what happens when you do that right." As we descended from the 10th floor, the same elevator I'd ridden for 40 years, I thought about Derek's words. About how he'd meant them as an insult. About how wrong he'd been. 40 years and nothing to show for it. He couldn't have been more mistaken. I had 800 families who depended on paychecks I'd helped provide. I had 400 educated minds I'd helped shape. I had one daughter who finally saw me clearly. I had a company that would outlive me, built on values that mattered. And I had the satisfaction of knowing that when someone tried to diminish me, to make me small, to erase 40 years of quiet dedication, I had the truth on my side. Not the truth of power or money or position. The truth that real success is measured in lives touched, not titles earned. In communities built, not ladders climbed. In people lifted, not people crushed. Derek was right about one thing, though. After 40 years, I had learned from my mistakes. I'd learned that people who measure worth by position are people who've never understood value. I'd learned that empires built on ego crumble fast. And I'd learned that the quietest voices often build the loudest legacies. As Jennifer and I walked to my car, a modest setting Derek had once called embarrassing, my phone buzzed one more time. Richard. Board meeting Monday. We need to discuss Derek's replacement. Any thoughts? I smiled and typed back, promote from within. Someone who's been here at least 10 years. Someone who knows our values. Someone hungry. Richard. I have just the person. Dorothy. Thank you for everything. I put my phone away and looked at my daughter. Ready to go home? More than ready, Mom. Good. Because I think it's time I showed you my real office. Your real office? The penthouse downtown, where I actually run the holding company that owns Stellar and 6 other businesses. I thought maybe you'd like to see what 40 years of nothing actually looks like. Jennifer laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. And as we drove away from Stellar Communications, I realized something. Derek had asked what I had to show for 40 years. The answer was simple. Everything that mattered, and nothing he could ever understand.